You're in tune to the Powerhouse Radio, linking the world to the Caribbean. You're in tune to the Powerhouse Radio, linking the world to the Caribbean. Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed on the Powerhouse radio station are those of the host, guests, and callers, and not necessarily those of this station, its management, or other hosts or advertisers. The show, found on the Powerhouse radio station, can promote any lifestyle, belief, religion, political affiliation, or other personal practice. These shows are for entertainment purposes only and are not intended to treat, diagnose, and or claim any cure of disease or conditions. Opinions stated by various contributors to the Powerhouse Radio and its programming are not to be considered as endorsed by the Powerhouse Radio station. Visitors are urged to use their own discernment to draw their own conclusion. We emphasize the importance of keeping an open mind.
You listen to the sounds of DJ Fourth Quarter in your ear right now. If you're in your car, if you're at home, if you're on your phone, let's gripe, baby.
Driving home and you're feeling kinda tired. Hey, radio play the same thing every day, so you need a little switch in your life. Traffic got you jammed up every night. Tune in to Powerhouse. Wednesday 7 to 9, you need to check them out. I promise I ain't trying to hype, but one good listen tonight, it might change your life. So what's the name of the show? You need something to just ride to on the go. Or you might be home, so log on. You can even dial in on your phone. I promise that you're gonna love it. Just try it one time, it'll blow your mind. Now I'ma say it just one more time. Every Wednesday from 7 to 9.
Let's gripe. Let's gripe. Let's gripe.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Welcome. It is November 29th. Welcome to the PowerhouseRadio.com. Of course, it's Let's Gripe with Tonia, Mckenna, and MG. MG is going to be out tonight, so you know what? Is this us ladies holding it down tonight? What's up, Mckenna?
What's up, Tonia? Happy Wednesday. I mean, it's like the last one in November. It's going to be December in like 5 minutes. So how was your holiday? Did you enjoy your food, fellowship, family, friends, fun? Tell me about it.
Well, I had a quiet Thanksgiving, of course. I'm thankful that I got to see another Thanksgiving, but it wasn't all joyous as it should have been. But I'm doing well, and I'm just glad to still be here, still be in the living above the dirt. So, how about you?
Yes, well, I mean, it's good to hear that you had quiet because sometimes quiet is what we need to just recharge. And, you know, as you always say, there's so many things to be thankful for. So I know that you enjoyed your time. And things aren't always the way that we want them. And that's just adjusting to life situations. Mine was fine. I did get out and travel a little bit. And, I made it to my destination safely and, got to spend a little time with my 96-year-old grandma who was hanging in there. And so it's just a blessing to see her still, alert and aware of her situation and, knowing everybody and still trying to give directions and orders. So it was definitely a blessing to get to see her. So it's good to be back. But I just want to say to all of our listeners, we hope that you also enjoyed your Thanksgiving and that you remember to, give thanks and spread a little cheer to those around you because, the holidays is a tough time for some people. And so we always have to be mindful to just have a little grace and a little extra patience and share some positive energy.
You couldn't have said that more perfect, McKenna. So last week, I think it was last week, Tuesday, a very close friend of family of ours, also a very known DJ in New Jersey. My mom and his mom was very good friends. So, we grew up calling each other cousins. And Even for my 40th birthday party in New Jersey, of course, he was my DJ. And his sister and I, we are really close when we were young, and we still are close. We talk to each other probably once a month and everything. But of course, he had a procedure to do last week, and he never woke up. So he has passed on. So that was saddening before Thanksgiving, of course, but definitely sending condolences to DJ Taurus from Paterson, New Jersey, to his family and friends. It is a big loss because I remember, like, when I was a kid, he was this young guy and he was a DJ, and to grow up and going to clubs and he is a DJ. And then, it's like when I was having my 40th in New Jersey, it was like, who else there was no who I'm going to get. It was automatically him. So that was, it was a stun because it was suddenly. So it just tells you that, no matter how things are going, how healthy you are, just sometimes you're going for a little procedure, even major, even small, and it's just, things happen. You can leave to go to work and just never make it back home. And that's why it's so important to just love who you love and love who loves you, and just live your life every day. I used to say, you only live once. My favorite motto, YOLO. But someone said to me a couple weeks ago, no, live it now. Mm-hmm. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm going to change that. So that was just one of the things that's just pushed out for me. The holiday is coming. For loved ones we all have lost. It kind of does something during the holiday. But when you appreciate the days, the times, the minutes that you have, it makes it more special. So we don't really want to damper the holiday spirit, but we want to lift it. But also, you have to lift it with love. You have to have love and compassion, and that's what we need nowadays. So, but you know what? We wasn't here last week. We had so much to catch up on. So, of course, I want you to do the breaking news. I heard something about Cassie and P. Diddy.
Listen, we were not here yesterday to talk about the tea, but the tea happened so fast. I mean, one day there was a lawsuit, and the next day there was a settlement. I mean, that was record speed. You get accused of something on one day and charges are filed, and then the next day everything is just settled and there's no more conversation about it. So it's very interesting to see the trend that's happening. I mean, we've been through the Me Too movement, we've been through, Bill Cosby and R. Kelly, and we know that there's some history in film and industry, media and hip hop of behaviors that just got swept under the rug because you had power and influence. And, some people were saying, well, why did she wait so long, she just wanted the money. And, why did she wait till the day before the statute of limitations expired for her to come, and sue, P. Diddy and Bad Boy Records and the other people that were named in the suit. But, the flip side of that is it takes a lot of courage to come forward and share, your experience, with the understanding that people are not always going to believe you and are not always going to side on the side of the victim. We are in such a society where we sometimes unintentionally, blame the victim for things that have happened. And we know that, there's a lot of speculation as to what has happened. And, because he wasn't tried in a court of law and all of the details and all of the facts weren't completely revealed for him to have a chance to refute them. But it does say a lot when a person less than 24 hours has a settlement. It speaks volumes as to what damaging things she could have potentially revealed, and then also other victims who may be out there. So I think people in the industry are starting to collectively put together comments that have been made down through the years about him and kind of string all of those comments together and realize that there has been a lot of silence. And there have been people who were in his circle that have been, as they say now, unalived um, as a result or a coincidence of their association. So, to Cassie, we, acknowledge how difficult it must have been to come forward and share some of the trauma that you've been experiencing. To other women who have experienced that, we just encourage you to, do what's best for you, whether it's confide in a loved one, a family member, a therapist, a priest, but don't hold on to that trauma because it's going to impact you down the road. So, it was a lot to unfold. And then it seems like I read that there was somebody else that came behind her who also had some allegations. So, Tonia, what do you think about what's been going on with Sean Diddy Puffy Combs, the father of?
I mean, a lot of times they say what goes on in the dark comes out in the light. Anytime we get on this topic, I always seem like I'm on the offended side. I'm not. There's no side. I just believe that when it comes to these celebrities, these athletes, when they're rich, when they have money, I believe that they believe that they can do certain things and get away with it. But I think the reason why is because people have allowed that to happen. They don't say anything at the time. They don't say anything, even whatever the situation, when they leave it. And years later, they will say something, but they don't go for criminal charges, but they go for lawsuits. And I guess I always put myself in those shoes. And I believe that I know for a fact that I would want them to pay, not with money, but with their life. Meaning you are going to leave all this money back here. You're going to go in prison. You're going to do some time. So it's hard for me to say, why are you suing for money? But then I said that average man couldn't get half of these women to do the things, especially when we go back to R. Kelly, the things that he had these women. We're not going to talk about the underage because underage is underage, just straight up. But the adults, you're going to tell me to eat my feces and I do that? There's no way. There's no way. I don't care how much money you have. How about you eat it? Let me cook it and you eat it. So I'm up in the air, but again, I do believe something has happened. I do know that men do rape their wives and girlfriend when they say no and they still take it. So I do know that exists. But like you said, she has information that could ruin his career, I believe. And I believe that's why it was settled within less than 24 hours. It was like, you know what, let's nip this, because if this go to court, then other things could come out behind it. So I think she knows a lot. And that's why that was settled. But by him settling, it opens that door for more people who was even around him for a second can make allegations. And I think his attorney came out and was like, listen, because he settled, this is not saying he's guilty, and et cetera, et cetera. But if you notice, you haven't heard anything more about that particular person as well. You heard about that one coming forward, and that was it. Nothing ever after.
Mm-hmm. So he's got a third lawsuit that came forward, and then I think that he's also stepped down from some of his companies or chairman positions. I think it was Revolt.
Yes, Revolt. Even Macy's had owned 90% of shares of Deshaun John.
Okay.
They have decided they're no longer carrying his those in the store. So He didn't lose big on that one because he only had 10% share.
Okay.
Ownership, and then there was one of the alcohol company.
Was it Ciroc or
not Ciroc? Another one.
Another one. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, do you think, like, for these men in this position of power, there was some conversation on the internet about people around him who have co-signed and covered for him. And of course, this is alleged because we don't have all of the facts here. But there are some people who are complicit in covering up or not speaking out. And I wonder what it would take to change that culture of silence. And I get that people of power position themselves in such a way that they have so much influence over another person's livelihood. Like sometimes if you have to make the decision between your livelihood and confronting somebody on their misbehavior, you choose your livelihood in that moment. And we get that. And one of the things that you said earlier was that, what's done in the dark eventually comes to light. And so truth and justice and accountability sometimes is slow, but life has a way of unveiling things, even if it's later in your life. And so, you go through your life and you think you're getting away with things. And then he mentioned when he won, I want to say that BET award, where he talked about having gone through a dark period of time and appreciated those people who stood around him and continued to root for him. And so I wonder, out of curiosity, my own gripe would be, has there been any internal repentance? Has he looked in the mirror and acknowledged, some of his allegedly abusive tendencies towards staff and women in particular? So I think that this story is unfolding, and I think that there will be more things that are discussed and revealed, and we just will chime back in as we get more information.
But also with the law that was being extended in New York, someone came forward about Jamie Foxx. Did we see that? We also heard that. And then they also have the mayor of New York. Yes, someone, when he worked with the city, came forward and is suing him and the city for sexual harassment.
Yeah. It's just amazing that we're still having this conversation about sexual harassment. I mean, one would think that with all the corporate training that people go through, like if you're a leader, a CEO, most companies have policies on harassment that are reviewed every year. There's so much conversation in the news and the media about it. It's alarming that it's still something that is being experienced by women. And I wonder what it would look like to have an end to it. What type of consciousness do you have to have an end to it? MG chimed in. MG said, if you were moving and shaking in New York in the 90s, they're coming for you. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Can you imagine though?
Imagine. But imagine who's scared right now. Like everybody knows somebody who did something they weren't supposed to do. But, there are women who have made it, who, if they were to legitimately tell their story, I'm sure that they could tattle on a lot of people. So I wonder, like, who's sitting around the room saying, I wonder if so-and-so is going to spill the beans on what I did to her or him.
Can you imagine that part?
And then if you're that woman, if you're one of those women that knows that this CEO or this rapper or this person assaulted you and you never really got amends, like, how do you handle that now? Do you call them and say, I'm waiting on my apology? Or what do you do? Do you just forgive and let it go? Do you need that acknowledgement and that, I can't even say reparation, but like, do you still need that? So it's a hard question to pose because we don't really have anybody to answer it. But I just wonder. I mean, I can imagine that there are women who are reading this who are being re-traumatized because of their own experiences that people may not know about. You know, I wonder if there's a woman who's currently in a relationship that never told her partner that this person, this CEO, this rapper, this family member assaulted, molested, abused, took advantage of me. And that person has never discussed that with anybody. I think it's a lot of moving parts.
Because some women feel ashamed to come forward because a lot of times people will say, well, what did you do to encourage it? Did you flirt with this person? Like what type of clothes you wore? And then like you said, a lot of time is no one would believe me. It would be my word against his. So all of that plays a factor. I just believe when it comes to women or men who are sexually abused in their past, when they are in a relationship, not when you just start dating someone, but if you're in a committed relationship, you see that is going to, go to a certain level. I really believe that is something that you should talk about. And if it's something that is hard for you to talk about, go to counseling together and talk about it. Because you think about it, it's one in every 10 women that has been sexually assaulted, raped, molested, abused sexually, and men too. So it's something that I believe that conversation is definitely there to have when you experience that. I just wish that, because time is different now. Now, back in the days when our grandparents and so forth, our parents, it was something that was not talked about much, was brushed under the rug, but not today. We can go out. I mean, we leave that situation and we can go to the emergency room. We can go to the police station. There are attorneys that are there waiting to represent women and that who has been, sexually assaulted. So I just believe that it's more now when you have young girls, even not even teenagers, but girls that has grown up at least 5 years old, start teaching them, what is appropriate and what is not, and say something. If you don't feel comfortable telling me, tell your dad, tell a teacher, something, tell your friend, something. I think it's a conversation that we're never going to stop having this conversation. The only thing is that it comes around more because the celebrity world, when it comes out, there's always dollar signs on it. So I just think so. For anyone that has experience or experience in sexual abuse or so, talk to someone, even if it start by going to counseling, to get your options, and then you can take it to the next level. Please don't hold it in, because I know when we are stressed about bills coming up, the toll it takes on us. So think about something like that, how it eats us up. So again, for any of our listeners, family, friends, again, talk to someone. Someone is there that you can talk to let them know what's going on, give advice, etc., etc. So let's see how this law takes effect in New York. I just wonder if it was in Georgia, how it would really go. I don't know. I remember years ago working with your coworker. You had a handsome supervisor or a handsome coworker. You're like, hey, honey, is that sexual harassment? Apparently it is, especially if it's not wanted by that person. So now in the workplace, that's not even appropriate. Even now, if you go to the grocery store, how before you're like, ooh, you so tall, I would like to climb that ladder. I mean, if the person don't like it, hey, that's sexual abuse, So we just have to not do it anymore, because it used to be fun, and it was in a fun way, not in a bad way, or even to lead to a sexual assault. But now, if it's not wanted, hey, it can lead to that. So again, reach out to your local law enforcement if you need to press charges, or to an attorney who don't mind getting those coins for you. But in the next news, we're going to talk about T.I. T.I. and his son, King. What's up with King? I wish he was my son.
He's standing on business. Where's MG? I wish MG was here to chime in on this standing on business post.
Yes, we're going to have to bring this back next week when he's here.
We're going to have to circle back. Standing on business. I mean, there are a couple of sides to this. There's the side that we see. We see this child spiraling again, being rude and disrespectful in public, and projecting himself in a way that, he wants to be on this other side of the track. That's who he is, I'm so Bano, or whatever the word he was using. And T.I., the parent, what we see is T.I. frustrated with this son of his who isn't as hard as he thinks he is, basically grew up with a silver spoon in his mouth. But I think I feel like there's a little bit more to the story that we don't see. There's something that is a contradiction in their relationship. Like he's always saying something like, I know who you are. And when a child or a person says, I know who you are, it's almost like they're saying that they know something that other people don't know, or they've seen some contradictory behavior, or who he sees T.I. to present himself as is not who he's always seen. And I think that King is stuck in three worlds: his reality, the past, and his future tense. And we remember on the show where he went to go live with his grandma, like he went to go stay over there because that's where he wanted to be. And, there were some episodes where they were trying to get him to come back home, and that's not what he wanted to do. And so, hey, I see you.
MG was like, I got to get in this one. He was like, hold up, let me pull up.
So it's interesting why he doesn't have the appearance of respect for his father, at least in public. Like you have this public, when we were growing up, you have this public-private relationship. You knew that in public, you did not disrespect your parents. Like there was just something that was instilled in you. Now, when you got home or in the car, you might slightly slam a door if you're bold enough, roll your eyes, refuse to do something. But in public, it was something that was instilled in us that we didn't act up in public. And not just King, but there's a whole generation of children who didn't get that rearing, that upbringing, that instillment. And so I feel like there's some work that they both need to do to repair this relationship. Whatever it is that he's holding up on T.I.'s head. And T.I. is like, listen, if you know me, then you know me. Like I'm T.I., I am who I am, I did what I did, and this is where I am going forward. I don't really see T.I. as hiding from his past in this moment. T.I. is very involved in the community. He's working on different projects. He's built a whole housing community to house, people who are either indigent or low income. Like he's doing work in the community. This is who he is. We all have a past, young boy King. Keep on living, because this is going to be clearly your past that people are going to measure you to eventually. But I feel like they need to sit on that couch and have like some more conversation. Because some of us want to punch King in the chest, and the other of us want to just hold him upside down and shake him a little bit to see if something falls out, because there's a disconnect here.
Big disconnect. Big. I just wanted to chime in on this. If y'all hear some Christmas music in the background, just ignore it. But no, man, this is interesting because I think this is a generational gap in parenting and being a child or a kid rather. And I think somebody has said it too, is about when the kids are raised with this social media age, everything is a think piece. Every small little thing is a think piece about victimization of how somebody did something or treated them wrong. Now, some of them definitely may be valid, but I think one of the things that I remember once I got of a certain age, looking back on some of the things that I felt like my parent, my father, and my mother, some of the things and decisions that they made, I used to be kind of, angry about it when I was younger because I didn't understand why the decisions were made. Um, but I say that to say that sometimes young folk don't understand parenting. And you're not going to understand it until, I don't know, maybe you get older, maybe you become a parent your own self, and you have to make some of those decisions. Like we always talk about that phrase, and nobody wants to say it. And your kid asks you why, and you say, because I said so. That comes out because everybody always say, I hated that phrase. My mom and daddy said that. But in the reality, it comes out because of certain situations. You know what I mean? And I think, he's talked about for a while about, how he has always gone out to his grandmother's house. And I think Tiny said something about, he went up there because he knew his grandma was going to let him do whatever he wanted to do. So he always wanted to go over there. I don't know that part of it, but I have seen as of late and recently that King is the only son right now that T.I. has been seen with lately. You know what I mean? His other two older sons have been doing their thing in music and stuff like that. But he's the only son that T.I., even the youngest baby, I haven't even seen him. But we've seen a lot of King. So he's the only son that he's been with. So my guess is that he's been trying to nurture some type of relationship, to kind of get that father son and maybe teach him a little thing, teach him something. But this is probably the last straw. And as a father, when you do something, when you embarrass your parents in public, ooh-wee. Now, we don't know what happened when that camera went off or when that camera failed. My guess is, of course, it sounded like he got a little physical. And I ain't mad at him because I think, when kids get to the point where you're disrespecting your parents and telling your parents you standing on business, what you talking about, bro? What does that even mean to me as your parent? You standing on business. So, it's just a lot of disrespect, man. And from my vantage point, I just hope they can somehow nurture that relationship enough to where, they can start being father and son and mother and son and just exist. But I definitely think it's a lot for people to think about and talk about as far as parenting goes.
I mean, when he said I'm standing on business, I wanted to look around and be like, what's the address of this business you're standing on, sir? Do you have is it incorporated? Like, do you have an e-board? Like, what business are you standing on so that I can either move out the way or stand on it with you? What business, sir, are you standing on? And I wonder, does he have a mentor? Because, sometimes you can't listen to the person that's in front of you, i.e. your mother or your father or your brother or your sister. But I wonder if there is somebody in this community that he longs to be associated with that can pull him to the side and say, young bro, let me show you a life lesson here. The way that you're going about it isn't going to get you where you really want to go. And I hope that there's somebody in that circle, and I hope that T.I. has enough humility to move out of the way and allow another man maybe to come in and mentor his son. Because maybe T.I. can't do it at this stage. Maybe he really does need to be partnered with somebody else to help him see not just the error of his ways, but his thinking, help him change his thinking about, how he's responding to whatever he's feeling on the inside about this business that he's standing on. So that would be my ponder in this moment. Like, I think Tiny is probably frustrated. The grandma, I wonder if the grandma is enabling the situation. But I really wish that he had another mentor to kind of pull him to the side and tap him on the shoulder and sit him down and say, listen, let me take you for a ride. One of those.
So this is what I have to say about it. So we're going to start all the way we're going to go all the way back to, I want to go by grandma house. See, children, and I'm like that with my sisters, okay? My siblings and their children, your children don't get to say where they want to go. Okay? No. That it's where I want you to go. Now, if you're going to go by grandma, because grandma either watch you when we're out of town, when we're performing, when we, doing our shows, be out there promoting, whatever. That's fine. You don't get to go. Now we're home, you're back home. You don't get to go because you just want to go. See, things like that causes this. So now his grandmother raised him. You know, this is how he's speaking. And then he's saying on business. Like what for business? Okay. I believe that he heard stories about his dad when his dad was on the street. His dad passed. And I believe that he want to be cool. I think he wants to be cool. He want to be so hard. But he can be hard without acting like a fool. Because right now, I believe that's my opinion. He's acting like a straight fool. And he is only going to attract negativity and problems. Because he's going to go out there acting like he hard, he's bad. Someone gonna show him, yo, you ain't hard, you ain't from the street. Okay, you're not from the street, so let me show you what the street look like. When he get the taste of that, he'll really realize, nah, I want to go back to grandma for real. So I think it's just a reality thing that he needs to get a reality check. And I can appreciate, I don't condones, not condonance, but in this case, he got what he deserved.
Oh, you don't believe in fighting your kids?
Sometimes you have to fight them. Sometimes you have to fight. I remember my son was probably about maybe 14, 15. And I remember I said something to him. And he acted like he wanted to book. Honey, look, Mom, look, I was like, my name Tonia right now. What? Because what we not gonna do, don't even call me Mom, because it's Tonia right now. I mean, I was ready. We was gonna fight. Because I believe, because when you start playing with them and they think they could buck at you, they do it, and then they do it in public. It is more embarrassing. And that's what they were saying. He was bucking at Tiny, and that's why his T.I. had to roll up on him, and I appreciate that. I appreciate it 100%. Don't let him do it behind closed door or in public. And Tiny, as a mother, she probably babies him. She probably like, King, stop. You know, if your dad was here, you know he would. Nah, King, hold on one second. I'd pick up the nearest thing that I could. You know, so this whole situation.
I wonder how the oldest son feels about it.
He probably punched him in his face when he saw him later on. But here's the thing, though. Did you see that he went on Instagram advertising that he charging $10K if they want to hear his story?
He's standing on business, huh?
He's standing on business. But guess what? Because his father and mother probably done cut his allowance off, so now he's trying to sell some stories. But I was saying for the media, they should not even go there with him. He needs to sit down somewhere. No matter if you've seen your parents doing this, saying that, whatever it may be, you need to sit down. Let's go back in the days. What happened in this house, stay in this house. So I think he's doing that to try to get on the, ruffle their feathers as well, saying that he could sell his story, and he can, because there is somebody out there wants some tea on Tiny and T.I. and what goes on in their house. And also, they got a record coming out too. So I was also wondering, hey, was this leaving something up Rob too? Did you see that?
Who has a record coming out? King?
The big son, the other older one.
Oh, the older son.
I think his name Damon.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. He has a record coming out, and King is featured on it. So I saw that today. I was like, well, you know what? They be doing the whole most. And just to shy off of this real quick, did you see week before last, Snoop Dogg went on Instagram and he was like, he's giving up smoke. And he just asking, the public to respect his family and their privacy. Did you see that?
So Snoop Dogg is giving up smoking marijuana?
He just said smoke. So everybody jumped on the bandwagon and talking about they gonna give it up to after Thanksgiving or whatever. But guess what? It was a marketing thing. He was marketing some kind of product. Do you see how people can be influenced? So that also brought me back to, I said that to say, is this one of that marketing genius that happened with Tiny and T.I. and King? Because now your son is dropping an album. If it is, it ain't cool because plays.
I don't know. But I hope it's not that though, where they got an album out. This is bad publicity. I mean, I guess they say, even bad publicity is supposedly some type of good publicity, but this ain't it at all. So I hope that's not the case. But who knows?
Yeah. I mean, I hope it's not the case. And I to your point, any publicity is some publicity, but this is not the way you want to get your fans and people listening to your music. And, we don't want to tear down our community. We want to build up our community. We want to show a positive light at all times. And I think that's one of the messages that he's missing, that this is a bad look. It's a bad look for the Black man. It's a bad look for the Black family. And it's a bad look for the Black son. And, we're always in a time where we want to portray ourselves in a positive light because people are always watching. They're always watching to see what's happening. And so, but as you mentioned earlier, there is a disconnect with this generation. Respect means something completely different than, the definition is still the same, but the way it's presented in public is completely different. And for whatever reason, some children in this generation or some young adults in this generation don't feel that they have to demonstrate respect in public. They're very quick to be disrespectful and stand behind their disrespect, like it's okay, like they're entitled to be disrespectful because of whatever they feel that the other person did, and that thought process. Okay, so here is, I was on the University of TikTok the other day, and there was a young teacher. She couldn't have been more than 22, 23 years old. And she literally was in tears crying about her classroom. And she said that she was an elementary school teacher and her kids have no desire to learn, that they can't read, they don't write, and all they want to do is sing the lyrics to some rap song that I've never heard of that was, very sexual in context and
I guess it's Sexy Red.
I think it was a Sexy Red person. And she was in tears. She was like, our generation is doomed. The parents aren't supportive. They don't stand behind the teacher. They allow their children to be disrespectful. One of the parents told her, well, you told her to go sit in the corner. She told you no, because that's not what she wanted to do. I don't see the problem. She told you that's not what she wanted to do. And so she was just frustrated and in tears, and people were really rallying around her and just admonishing parents who, let their kids listen to this music and don't stand behind. Like, what happened to parents being in education in the instance that you had to, the expectation was that you went to school and you got your lesson. That's your job. Your job is to go to school and learn. That's your only job. And then your second job is to clean your room and do your chores. That was your job as a child. And your parents supported the teacher no matter what. Like what the teacher said was what the teacher said. And if Miss Jones said, go sit in the corner, I don't understand why you're not sitting in the corner. What's this conversation about? Because your only job here was to go to school and do what you're supposed to do. But now parents are co-signing for disrespect at 4 and 5 years old.
And when they get mad, they get upset, they want to yell, they want to hit, and then blame it on someone else. No, it doesn't go that way. Like I said, even now, my niece, she just turned 21 this year. She said to me, she said, Auntie, she said, you didn't play that. She said, and what you would do is take a belt and they had to open their hands, and you hit them in their hand, beat them with the belt in their hand. So I started to laugh, and I felt like king. I'm standing on business. Okay. Yes, I did. So I said, that's one thing. But see, majority of the time I didn't have to pick the belt up, because when I looked at any of them sideways, they knew what that meant. Right. And even my son, he'll say I was mean. I wasn't mean. No, I didn't play that. Children stay in a child's place. When you get out of that place, especially when you under 18, I'm going to put you back in your place. When you 18 and over, I just leave you alone. I treat you like a grown person. So we have to, as parents, and not only parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, for the young ones coming up, we have to teach them from then. My niece is 5 years old, and I was talking to my mom on the phone. We were talking on FaceTime, and she wanted to say something to me. And she came to that phone and she said, "Excuse me, Auntie." And I said, "Okay." She went. But before she didn't, she used to, and I used to say, "No, you have to say, 'Excuse me.' If you see someone is talking, you have to say, 'Excuse me,' so they can stop talking and allow you to say something." And I told her this maybe when she was about maybe 3. And to see till today, she's still doing it. I was like, yes, I'm not going to let her get away with it. No, you have to say, "Excuse me," when you see someone talking. And that's why I say that you have to do that with them from they're small. And as they're growing up, and if you see that they're veering from what you taught them or the right thing, you have to put them in check. I'd call 911, because when you call them, your bag's going to be packed to go with them.
But to your point, Tonia, you cannot start parenting your child when they're 10 and 11. It's too late by then. You literally have to start when they first get here. From the day that they get here, you establish the love and the nurture, because that's what they need, and then you establish the rules and the boundaries. But we've seen the videos on TikTok with the 2-year-old who's cussing, and the parents are all laughing because they think that it's cute, and they're throwing the toys, at their siblings, and they think that that's cute. That's not parenting. Parenting is a full-time job, and it's a lot of work on the parents, and you have to be consistent, and you have to set boundaries with them, and you have to discipline them, and you have to be consistent with that. And discipline doesn't mean that you beat them all the time. Discipline might just mean, okay, you're going to sit here for 5 minutes until you're ready to apologize. I remember my nephew came to visit, and I think I've shared the story, and we sat down, and I was like, "Okay, say your grace so we can eat." And my nephew was like, "Well, we don't say grace in my house." And I said, "Well, you do remember that at this house that we say grace, and it's okay that you don't say grace at your house, but this is what's going to happen. You don't get to eat until you say grace." And I walked away. Like, there was no argument. There was no you don't get to say, you do not eat until you say grace. And you can say your own grace, and it can be silent. I'm fine with that. And I walked away, and he sat there, because this was the stubborn one. The youngest one went ahead and said the grace. He said it out loud so I can hear it. He said, "TT, I said it. Can I eat now?" I said, "You sure can, baby." But that oldest one sat there for about 20 minutes. The youngest one was finished. And so finally, the oldest one said, "TT," I said, "Yes." He said, "I'm ready to eat now and say my grace. Is it okay if I say it silent?" I said, "It sure is." I said, "Would you like me to heat your food back up?" He was like, "No, I'll eat it like this." So, you give them consequences, or you give them choices. I didn't have to yell at him or beat him, it was very simple. Don't say your grace, you don't get to eat. As soon as you say your grace, you can eat. And I gave him all the space that he needed. He had 20 minutes. And he finally made his own decision that he wanted to eat his food. And so I think that it's just an example of how we can still engage them and give them the space to make their decisions and understand that decisions have consequences. Because it would have been fine with me if he didn't eat. You're not going to starve because you missed one meal. He was 10 or 11 at the time. He ate earlier. He had 2 meals before that one. So like, if he went to bed with no dinner, it was not a crisis. I was prepared to pack that food up, put it in some foil, and put it in the refrigerator, and not be mad that he chose not to say grace, because he had a choice. And so I think that there's a whole lack of engagement with kids. It's not just good enough to berate them and shame them into doing things. You have to help them understand that there are consequences to your choices. So if you don't do your homework, then you don't get to go outside and play. It's very simple. There's no argument. This is what it is. Hand me that phone and put it up here on the counter because you don't get to play with the phone. Take the remote from you because you don't get to watch TV. Like, you have choices. Life is a series of choices that come with consequences. And it's not hard to parent children because of the government. It's hard to parent children because of the lack of consistency and the lack of discipline that parents have. And it's also difficult to parent children when adult parents haven't healed from their own trauma of how they were raised. You know, like if you were raised and people beat you all the time and you think that the only way to control people is to beat them, you need to go and work through that, because parenting is not about controlling your child. It's about helping them to be responsible so that they can make decisions and understand consequences and be productive citizens in life, so that when they navigate in these streets, they're not embarrassing you or embarrassing themselves or hanging around people that are going to maybe associate them with crime or bad decisions. You know, parenting is helping them decide, well, what do I want to do with my life? And what is the benefit of making good grades? The benefit of making good grades means that you might be a good employee one day, because eventually you're going to have to work for somebody. When you work for somebody, you're going to have to read the instructions and follow directions and follow the rules and go on break when you're supposed to go on break. That's the purpose of school. It's not about the 9 planets or however many there are now and the calculus and the geometry. It's about the discipline of using all of that information to do a job or a task. And so, you know, parents who parent, they don't end up in jail for parenting. Parents who don't parent usually have kids that end up in jail because of the lack of restraint. Oh, I'm mad, so I'm going to go beat somebody up. You didn't teach them how to be mad and not get in a fight. You know, you didn't teach them to be angry now, but think about your strategy for later. Like, if I get even now, I might get suspended from school. If I get suspended from school, I don't get to go to prom. I might not graduate. So yeah, I'm mad. Put some respect on my name. You might have to wait till later. You might be respecting me because I walked across the stage and you didn't. You know, so I take issue with people who hide behind reasons why it's hard. And well, nobody said it was going to be easy. It is work, you know, and if you spend 8 hours a day at your job, you might have to turn around and spend 8 hours a day at home parenting, just so that later you're not getting that phone call at 2 o'clock in the morning. And it's not that I'm bashing or blaming people, because we do the best we can with what we have. And we don't always know everything in the beginning. And we don't always have the support that we need to be a better person and a better parent. And sometimes we don't get it until we're 50 or 60, which makes us better grandparents or aunties, because now we've lived longer and we've been exposed to things. But I would encourage people to hang in there, you know, and surround yourself with some support when you need that support. And of course, you know, on Let's Gripe, we constantly believe in prayer. And I think that, you know, we have to pray for our kids and pray for our teachers and pray for, you know, those people who come in contact with our kids so that they can pour positive energy to them as well. But we're going to pray for this king child, because Lord knows he needs an extra dose of prayer. And we're going to pray for his parents as well.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Well, no one can say it better than Mckenna, of course. And of course, you know, when you have MG chiming in, you know, one of our listeners texted me and said, MG is funny. Talking about he's standing on business.
Man,
so Nakaya
yeah.
said yes, and parents should get paid $1,000 a year. Yeah, I don't know. So Keith says, let's be honest, it doesn't matter what age we start to show right and wrong, especially when single mothers, peer pressure still plays a part. Sometimes a lot of people say, coming from a single parent home, a lot of children are disobedient. Not true. I can speak for my son. I have nephews, and I also have godchildren. I mean, we could go down friends, co-workers that are single parent, and their children are great children, successful adults now. It's just, you just can't be friends. And I tell people this all the time. You can't be friends with your children. You just can't. You know, because they don't know how to separate, okay, me and my mom is cool, you know, but then when it's time for, you know, the parenting to come in, you still acting like we friends. So I can't do it together. So I'm different, because sometimes my son said to me one time, he was telling me a story, and you know, he had a curse word in it, and he was still talking when he said the curse word, but when he had to stop because he saw me just like froze. I'm looking at him like, no, you didn't. He's like, what? I said, you are never gonna be able to curse in front of me. He talking about mommy. But how long you been? How old was you when you start? Like, if you said any curse word around grandma, never.
Really?
I said, so that means never ready for you as well. We just don't do that. My mom, the basic word, you know, the four letter word, the S or the D. That's it. Those other words, I don't. It just we not gonna have it. I'm not cool. Call me old school or just call me whatever. We not gonna have those things. So I just think a lot of times everybody's parentings are different, but you have to not wait till they go in public to embarrass you for them to want to discipline them. That's my take on that.
Mhm. And just one last thing. I was fiddle faddling around this weekend, and the Cosby Show was on some channel, and I hadn't watched any episodes of the Cosby Show in years. And I was just watching a few back-to-back episodes, and despite of what happened with Bill Cosby later on, there were so many life lessons that were shared in that show, and I think that's why it stood the test of time. And the lessons were timeless. And they didn't yell at their kids, they didn't beat their kids, they taught them life lessons. And their kids had a good relationship with the parents. They were able to tell them things that were going on in school and share about their Vanessa's little boyfriends and Theo's girlfriends. And, even when Denise went off to college and when Sandra got married. And so I just think that, like you said, to your point, there's different styles of parenting, but the relationship is what's important. And whether it's a parent-child relationship and they feel comfortable, it doesn't mean you're friends. It just means that they're comfortable enough to share what's happening, and they trust the response that you give them, and they accept the criticism or the discipline that occurs, when they make mistakes. And I think that it just takes an ongoing effort both ways. Kids need to feel love from their parents. They need to feel that they can trust their parents. They need to feel that their parents are going to be there, and that discipline has a purpose. I think one of the things in our generation that was annoying is, okay, you're yelling and screaming at me, but help me understand what I did wrong. And so now you have parents who they want to passive parent because they were traumatized as children because they got strict discipline, but they didn't get an understanding of what the purpose of the discipline was. Like, what did I do wrong? And I think that the conversation about parenting is one that is, I think as long as it comes from a place to help create and build a positive community, create and foster relationships between parents and children, create productive citizens, and support education, like the teachers who have to deal with them for 8 hours, I think that it's a good conversation to continue. Pouring into all of those parents who have felt stressed out at times, who wanted to walk away and just leave their kids to their parents, who hung in there with them and are proud of them to this day. So blessed or strong Sagittarius. Okay, strong Sagittarius.
We'll do.
Well, guess what? It's 7:58. So before we go, do you have any gripe before we go?
I don't. I think I think I'm good on the gripe. I mean, I know I'm pretty sure y'all talked about it, but really quick, I don't have a gripe, but I just have one of my favorite holidays just passed, and I want to talk about y'all disrespectful people who had y'all Christmas trees up a day or two before Thanksgiving, probably even a week or two. Y'all have to give Thanksgiving its just due. It is the one holiday where you say, I don't want nothing from you and you don't want nothing from me. All I want us to do is break bread and give thanks for each other. Give thanks for whatever you want to do in life. Give thanks to God. You should do that every day. But you give thanks to the people in your life. Say, hey, I love you. It is the one universal day of should be of love outside of Valentine's Day and good food. You hear me? And y'all want to skip over it to put presents up under the tree. Come on now. All right. That's enough for me.
You know
That's
what?
my little gripe.
MG, before we go though.
What's up?
But when did we start putting Christmas tree up before Thanksgiving? I thought we put it up Thanksgiving, after Thanksgiving,
Nah.
the night of Thanksgiving. When did we start putting it up after Halloween?
People do it after Halloween. I remember it was like November 2nd, and there were Christmas lights in my neighborhood with full blow-up reindeer and I don't know what Santa Claus or something that these people have in their yards down the street. They blow them up every night. Full Christmas lights and everything. This was like November 2nd, right after Halloween. So
I didn't, you know, I was after Thanksgiving. What about you, MG?
No, it got to be after Thanksgiving. Got to be.
I'm just shocked. I've seen people putting up the Christmas tree after Halloween, and like you said, November 2nd, and I was shocked. I haven't gotten in the mood yet for Christmas either. And this is November 29th.
So disrespectful.
So you hear that from MG on Let's Gripe. Don't disrespect him no more on his favorite holiday. I think mine is Christmas.
he's standing on Christmas business.
Business, okay? Well, guys, guess what? It's 8 o'clock. MG, thank you so much for pulling over, coming in, chatting with us, because you know we can't have certain conversation without you. Again, we do thank you for tuning in to the powerhouseradio.com every Wednesday to listen to Let's Gripe. But don't forget, Reasoning Thursday on Thursdays. That is 8 to 10 with Lady D and friends. And also don't forget the Lady D show on Saturday, 12 to 4 p.m. at the powerhouseradio.com. So Powerhouse, take us on out. This is Tonia saying peace out.
This is Mckenna saying good night, everybody.
Yeah. You listen to the sounds of DJ Fourth Quarter in your ear right now. If you're in your car, if you're at home, if you're on your phone, let's gripe, baby.
Driving home and you're feeling kind of tired. Hey, radio play the same thing every day. So you need a little switch in your life. Traffic got you jammed up every night. Tune in to Powerhouse. Wednesday, 7 to 9, you need to check them out. I promise I ain't trying to hype, but one good listen tonight, it might change your life. So what's the name of the show? You need something to just ride to on the go. Or you might be home, so log on. You can even dial in on your phone. I promise that you're gonna love it. Just try it one time, it'll blow your mind. Now I'ma say it just one more time. Every Wednesday from 7 to 9. Let's gripe. 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 Let's gripe.
You're in tune to the Powerhouse Radio, linking the world to the Caribbean.